Lights, camera, action.
In a studio where local filmmakers talk to other filmmakers about the inside world of film.
Cut.
That's not the script. It. We'll fix it in post. Do you wonder how films are produced and what really goes on behind the scenes? Well, stand by. Filmmakers Kevin Munfrey, Victoria V.A. Jones, and Carson Hype Ferguson explain all the details. Right here on It, We Will Fix It in Post podcast.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Whenever you're listening, I thank you for doing so. I am Kevin Munfrey once again, and this is We Will Fix It in Post. I'm doing a solo venture today, but I will be talking to the founder of VSAN. He goes by the name of Richard Greenhalgh. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you doing?
I am great. So first, could you give us kind of like a quick overview of what VSAN is?
VSAN is a COVID and cleaning company that was founded in Vancouver, British Columbia after the pandemic in 2020.
Okay, so let's kind of go back a little bit. What were you doing before the pandemic?
I was a producer and a studio executive for one of Canada's most prolific film companies. And we were in production for a movie of the week prior to the pandemic hitting the world.
So do you remember kind of the first time you were heard of COVID?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends in Asia, in particular in Japan and Korea, and we had heard from them months before. I'm talking like November of like 2019. We were hearing about COVID coming from China to Korea and Japan, and friends were warning us about it and actually asking us if we could send medical masks and gloves because there was a shortage in that part of the world. So some friends and I mobilized some masks and some gloves, and we sent it over to Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Korea.
Now, I know here, and unfortunately, we heard about it in November as well, but was very kind of dismissive of it. Like, oh, there's just something that was happening over there. Do you think Canada was the same way?
I think everybody was unprepared for it. I do think Canada was the same way. I think everybody was unprepared for it, except for those who are going through it in that part of the world. And they were really the canary in the coal mine, letting people know, what was coming. And for whatever reason, it just fell on deaf ears.
Now, at what point do you think it started to affect the film industry?
I'm not quite sure on what the timeline was, but I know that once it started to hit Vancouver in the film scene, the industry unanimously decided that they were shutting down. And all the big shows that are tied to U.S. studios started to shut down. We had about 4 days left of photography left on our show. And we felt that because we were smaller show, leaner and meaner, we would navigate the next 4 days, see what would happen. And we did so successfully without an incident.
So how long I guess you all were in shutdown before you kind of decided to make a return to work plan?
We were probably, from February of 2020 till about April 2020, we've been working on a return to work plan daily, every day, many hours a day. We were digesting every studio plan that came within our circle, everything from BBC, Fox, Warner Brothers, Netflix. Everybody had kind of a loose plan going forward, and everybody had great ideas and great strategies, but we felt that we could tailor it to our needs, in particular to Vancouver and the smaller movie of the week industry. And we kind of streamlined things, came up with our own ideas, took some great ones, and came up with a 27-page return to work plan that was mostly penned by my partner and mentor, Gilles Laplante.
So at what point of making this plan did y'all kind of come to the conclusion that a new department needed to be made within the film industry?
We knew very early on in executing this document that that it was time. It was long overdue, frankly. More on the safety end of things, not so much with communicable diseases, but more on the safety end of things. And I think COVID really pushed the industry in that direction of adopting a health and safety person for the sets to manage safety and health overall for the crew. So I think it was long overdue, and I'm happy to see it.
So yeah, I kind of wanted to expand on because I would have honestly assumed that there was already some sort of safety department within a film being done. So why do you believe that there hasn't been one till COVID?
Well, we have crafty first aid. So craft service first aid is the people that put out the tables, the fruit and vegetables, making the sandwiches, but they also have their first aid ticket, and they're there to, if someone gets hurt, slip and falls, allergic reactions, they're there to address that and fill out a report, and that was the extent of their health and safety. But this time around, it was actually a department that would address all the hazards of a set. And if you've been on a film set, you know that there are many. There's slips and falls. There's things sticking out. There's areas you're not supposed to walk into. So having a person that was designated to flag all of these potential hazards and risks, and then disseminate that information to the crew so that there was an educated understanding of what you're dealing with, really wasn't something that was accepted or pushed in the film industry prior to COVID.
Now, in this new department, who's all in this department?
So it's a health and safety officer. They are skilled in communicable diseases. In British Columbia here, we have a government organization called the Workers' Compensation Board. So they would be familiar with the Workers' Compensation Board policy, so that the production would not be in violation of any of the work orders. They'd also be well-versed in the studio return to work plan. So what the studio designated as their safety plan and what they wanted to see executed on set, they would be responsible for making sure that that was done to the letter. Then we added 2 sanitation technicians, which basically were cleaners on set, cleaning in real time. So, cleaning doorknobs and high traffic areas and surfaces, talking to the various departments about, cleaning up their equipment that multiple people were touching. They would help the health and safety officer point out the crew members who weren't so excited about, keeping their mask on and washing their hands and that sort of thing. They would kind of let the health officer know who was not complying, and basically have a conversation with them about getting them back on track.
Now, with just having this whole plan in place, you were, I believe, one of your film projects, the first project that got approved to basically be filmed during COVID. So you got to put everything in play.
That's right. We were. I sat on a task force for Creative British Columbia, which is kind of our government cultural film department that promotes film. And I sat on that task force and weekly, and trying to talk to other members of it daily to find out, what was the Workers' Compensation Board what policies were they going to put in place that we had to follow? What were realistic to the industry versus what, a government body thought would work for us? And they in their first round of putting policies out, it would have been very damaging had they have done that, because they were made by bureaucratic people in an office and not so much involving the film industry in the conversation. We did actually get involved in the conversation with WCB, the Council of Unions, which is made up of the Directors Guild of Canada, the Teamsters Drivers Union, IATSE. They all sat on this union, and when we were first told what the policies and procedures were going to be, it was very much like the construction industry, which is not it's not a lateral move. It's not apples to apples when they were trying to put those policies on us, and we really had to convey that to the government that what you're doing won't work for our industry.
So about how long you kind of had to go this back and forth with
It wasn't so much as a negotiation as it was like they were going to put their policies forward, and we as the producers, filmmakers, and union members said, hey, this isn't going to work. I think you guys are coming at it from a wrong avenue of approach. We really think that you should look at it like this. And that dialogue, I think, really put it in a nice place where we could execute. So I would say that took 3 months of hard conversations. And when we were cleared to film from the Workers' Compensation Board and from the Directors Guild of Canada and the Union of British Columbia Performers, we were following Canadian law, and the studio return to work program or return to work plan. We were given a blessing to go, but the division in the community at this point was heated and vocal.
So yeah, I want you to elaborate on that division. So was the division as far as like you starting back or starting back as a whole?
Yeah, so the division was really between those who felt that there were no safety protocols that could be put into place that would justify going back to work, versus those who wanted to put some type of plan into place and going back into production. Friends of mine that I've had for 15 years, some of the comments were, we'll zoom into your funeral, or you guys are irresponsible producers for going first. There was a lot of there's a microscope on us, right, through the industry. And if being the pioneers and the first ones out the gate, if we had an outbreak or if we didn't do well, the rest of the industry would suffer setbacks as a whole. So I could understand my colleagues' hesitation and frustration, but at the same time, we've been veteran filmmakers, for 20 years. We knew what we had to do, and we had to test it and see if it would work, and that's what we did with VSAM.
Now, when you were making this plan, were there anything like any past events that the film industry had to go to that you kind of went and like used as a reference for making it, or this was kind of all came from scratch?
This was all brand new territory. There were no, there's no historical lessons that we could learn from the film industry, unless, we were around with the 1912 Spanish flu. None of us were around back then. So, this was all groundbreaking, brand new stuff that we had to implement and test on the ground.
So you're kind of like the man walking on Mars.
I wouldn't put it as prolific as that, but I'll take it.
So I mean, you're taking this plan, you're getting pressure from colleagues. If this don't work, it could honestly set the industry back probably years. So, like, what kind of pressure were you feeling when you were kind of putting this plan together for your first project?
I wasn't, we weren't worried about setting the industry back. We were worried about the cast and crew members that have been our friends for 20 years. We're worried about those young filmmakers and young technicians that were 2 years into their career with mounting debts that couldn't pay their bills. We were more focused on the health and safety of people, and we took that very seriously because these are our friends and our film family. We knew that if we were going to do this, it was going to have to be a collective decision by the cast and crew. One of the things that we talked about on A Wedding to Remember is that was the first show that got greenlit to go in North America, A Wedding to Remember. Shout out to that cast and crew. They basically promised that we will only go to the set, go to our homes or our hotel rooms and come back. That was it. There was no going anywhere else. It was maintain your bubbles, go to work, go home, come back, repeat until the shoot was done. And the cast and crew were so diligent about that and so amazing at taking this responsibility as the first ones to go very seriously.
So, with A Wedding to Remember, did you already have this cast and crew before COVID?
No, we did not. We as a strategy, as producers, something as simple as doing it was a rom-com, obviously.
Obviously.
If something as simple, how are we going to have the girl and the guy kiss for that magical moment in COVID? How are we going to do that?
Actually, a
right?
great point.
So what we did as producers, and shout out to Gilles Laplante because this was his idea. He's like, we're going to cast actor couples that we know. So think about that. Sorry?
It's a nice go around.
Right? They're already a couple. They're already together. They're living together. There's no testing. The unions weren't going to get in a huff and a puff about it. And, there were still protocols in place. We had to do we had to do some prescriptive photography from a certain angle. We had to make sure that they had, mouthwash and, hand sanitizer and all that stuff after kisses. But that is how we pulled it off.
Now, again, you mentioned that the cast and crew, they basically had to work and go home. So because I don't know if y'all had like a security to make sure that these people were going back and forth. So I'm guessing the degree of trust you have to have in these people to do that. So can you talk about how important is having trust in your cast and crew?
There was no policing that. It was the honor system. These are very honorable people. They knew going into this that we had a microscope on us. So, you work with people for a long time. There's a certain level of trust there. That's why you work with them, is because that they're going to do their job and they're going to do it in a professional manner, and you trust them to do the right thing.
Now, did you all have any outbreaks during the production?
We did not on that particular production. We had zero incident, and that was really the kind of the whoa moment. It was like, we did it. It was like a military operation. There was checkpoints and thermal cameras and, people getting their temperature taken. And if you didn't have a mask, one would be provided for you. Go wash your hands over there. We're not doing buffet style breakfast anymore. Everything was made to order. It's all wrapped up utensils. Go sit over there and have your eat. You have this much time to finish. Okay, you're done. Get them out of there. Sanitex would come in, spray down the tables, make sure the next round of people could come in. It was like clockwork in how it was executed.
You've gotten this film done. There's no outbreaks. Would you say word got out about it rather quickly,
I'm not too sure what was being discussed with our colleagues, in the community, but it certainly opened the door for people who were itching to go, decided to go. And, we were consulted, certainly. We were consulted just as, friends and colleagues. And then we were actually engaged vSAN services to manage that element for their production so they could focus on the harder job, which is being creative and filmmaking.
Now, when you finished this project, you could have honestly just taken this that you've made with your colleagues, of course, and just kind of kept it to yourself and kind of been ahead in the film industry where they just giving you projects to do. But you decided to make vSAN and help other producers and filmmakers. What made you to decide to go that route?
We never even thought of it from that one perspective that you're mentioning. We only thought about our community. We only thought about the industry at large, and rising tides lift all boats. So, it was important to me that that we just get back on track as an industry. It's interesting you say that. I was talking to Lee Cleary, first AD. Shout out to Lee. Big Marvel guy, big Marvel first assistant director. You might want to look him up on.
Guy.
Yeah, and I'm talking to Lee about it, and he's going, Richard, mate, how am I going to do it? We got 200 extras and this and that, and stunts and explosions. Like, how are we supposed to proceed filming with the system that you're proposing going forward? And I said, Lee, we've done it on a small scale that has proven successful. If we were given an opportunity to work out with Marvel, vSAN would be able to, emulate that success again. And he couldn't quite wrap his head around it, but they moved forward too, and they did their filming. And I'm sure it was very difficult because it's a larger number of people. But they move forward.
So with the bigger the project, your plan did not have to change in any way.
No, it was really about vSAN discussing with the studios their return to work plan. So vSAN serviced a really big Netflix series called Made. We serviced that. That was a negotiation with Viacom, Netflix, and at the end of the day, we implemented what the studio wanted into our program as they're the client, and we were happy to do so. And we executed that season of that show without incident.
Like when you were, like I said, you're starting to gain success when you're working with Netflix, Viacom. So I would think other filmmakers would see and go, okay, let me try what he did on my sets, and not necessarily talk to him about it. I'm gonna just look at what he does. Kind of like what all these streaming services did with Netflix. We're just gonna watch what you do, and then we're gonna try to copy it. So did anyone try to copy your plan?
So, we had some people parallel doing their thing at the same time as us. And then, we had not only our colleagues, but our competitors as producers come to us and ask us to execute the movies for them with COVID compliance and cleaning and sanitation. And we said, sure. We said, no problem. Be honored to do it. We did it. And we were talking about, we did it without incident, another 15-day shoot, come and gone. We were going to do the next one, and they said they were going to use us. And then for whatever reasons, they decided that they weren't going to use us anymore. And we were trying to figure out, like, hey, what's going on? Like, it was a successful show. We did well. You guys were happy. And we found out later on that this particular studio went and hired their own people that they thought could execute the job at a lesser rate. And, we we said, oh, okay, fine. That's their privilege to do. They're the client, right? And so they got shut down. Sorry, they never got shut down. They shut down due to multiple cases, and then came back to us and asked VSAN if we would parachute in and help them out, and of course we did.
Now I'm petty, so I would have gotten great glee out of that. I don't know if that's you per se, but me, I'm petty. I would have enjoyed that phone call.
You know, there's a part of me that agrees with you. There's no doubt.
It just shows that what you were doing was done right.
I think so. And you know, they did go on to use us again after that engagement. They used us a couple more times until they synthesized their own process. You know, that's their privilege to do. And you know, as a producer, I understand, you know, the budget's the budget. And if you can, you know, save money here to do that, that's what you need to do. As long as it wasn't at the expense of their cast and crew, that's what they needed to do. At the end of the day, they went on to do it without us, but I would say not as well and not as successfully.
Now, have you thought of using VSAN as almost like a tutorial process, like almost like I guess you would call it consultant in a way? You would go to other studios and teach other people your methods?
Yeah, absolutely. We're very much about that. You know, we even VSAN has sent our staff at our cost to you know, one-day shoots for music videos or commercials, or it's that young filmmaker that's just trying to get their first project off the ground and they didn't know how they were going to deal with COVID compliance. And we thought they're very talented. And so we thought, hey, you know, don't stress about that. We'll take care of it for you. No cost. Go make your film.
Now, that again, you said that was a cost to you. A lot of people wouldn't have done that. So what made you decide to kind of do that?
You know, it's about giving back to the industry that has been so good to us on so many levels as producers, production managers, directors, writers. You know, the next generation of filmmakers are the future, and I don't want it to sound like a cliche, but you know, if we help them out and their project went well and they got discovered and, you know, they got offered something bigger, and next they're remembering us in some capacity that helped, and we help to help, not to pay dividends in the future, but hey, if it did, that would be great too.
Now, have like film schools or like colleges have kind of asked you to come and do maybe presentations about this or anything like that?
No, we haven't. You know, I'm a former graduate of the Vancouver Film School, so I would love to do that. That would be great.
Yeah, same. I mean, 10 years from now, you're probably going to be in one of their history books.
I hope so, but I want it to be for you know, top 250 IMDb list, not for COVID compliance or safety.
Now, how do you go about? Because I'm guessing you're still producing films, correct? So how do you go navigate VSAN and also producing films?
That is a great question. They were so intertwined. At the end of the day, the producer is responsible for COVID compliance. So, you know, if we were going to shut down because of an outbreak, that would ultimately be the producer's decision or the studio's decision. And so we were so intertwined that the workflow lined up with each other. And when it wasn't my own shows that I was the producer for, you know, I would be hearing from the VSAN team on other productions with their producers. And we would basically be having a strategy session on how to deal with whatever the outbreak looked like on a particular set, whether it was their set or ours. And, you know, it was very hard decisions because of the fear. and the transparency that the crew wanted.
Now, did you ever think at one point that you may have to be all in on either one or the other?
No, I'm a filmmaker, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businessman, I'm a man of my community. We're taking a lot on for sure, but I felt I had the endurance to take it all on and to do it well.
Yeah, you definitely have a full load on your plate. So, how important is time management for you?
Time management is everything to any successful person. My calendar, when you look at it, it's back to back. It's back to back meetings all day, every day, weekends included. We had our mutual friend Adam on that we were talking to earlier, and I have weekly meetings with him. But he'll tell you I'll push them when I push them quite often because I have other business that I have to attend to that is very, very critical. So time management, you're only as good as your calendar, and if your calendar is back to back and it's productive and it's efficient, that's how you're going to make it.
Now, do you have to almost like schedule time off for yourself? Like, I know you probably wouldn't necessarily take a flight anywhere because plane tickets may be a little outrageous at this point, but just kind of like setting aside some time for yourself.
I mean, I've always tried to keep the weekends, but as a producer and a business owner, you're going to get that call. And if I'm wearing my VSAN hat, that call is going to be about a crew member or a cast member that had tested positive and how we're going to move forward with that, or that someone got a contact tracing. Or if I'm wearing my producer hat, it could be the same thing. Plus, we lost the location. That hot set that we left up on Friday somehow got cleaned up. We're going to try and figure that out. So I try to schedule the weekends, but as a filmmaker, this is the life that we've chosen, and it's 24/7 all the time. And it's just the way it is if you want to be successful and great.
Now, do you personally believe that COVID has forever changed the film industry?
I have no personal beliefs on any of this stuff, but as a producer, it has certainly affected the landscape of filmmaking forever, and we're just going to have to adapt and change with it, which is going to be communicable diseases. That's where we need to focus our energies on as producers and COVID compliance people in the future. It's not going to be just COVID next time. Could be some type of super flu, whatever your imagination can come up with.
Now, lastly, I wanted to ask you, 50, maybe 100 years from now, hopefully it don't happen, but I'm just throwing it out there as a hypothetical. We have another pandemic of some sort. Do you think the film industry is more equipped to handle that now?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a historical lesson to learn from. I think the bigger question is, how is history going to look at how we handled that? I think that's the bigger question.
I think we say that about a lot of industries: film, meat packing, vehicle. This is going to be a whole documentary that you may be producing.
It may be. I think 100 years from now, I think they're going to look at society as a whole of how we handled this and what we did. And only time will tell if decisions were right or wrong.
I think that's a great way to end this. Richard, I wanted to personally thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure, and I'd love to do this again with you sometime.
Oh, I'll hold you to that. Once again, I am Kevin Mumphrey with We'll Fix It in Post, and that, my friends, is a wrap.